Diego, it's everyone, Kajima Tashiv, and welcome back to episode number 78 of the Inline G Flute podcast with me, your host, motherfucking Inline G. You might have seen on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you follow me that this podcast episode is a little bit last minute. It is Friday the 27th of December. We're in that weird period of time between Christmas and New Year's where no one has a clue what day it is, and I'm full up of Guinness. So, I didn't get an episode out at midnight. I'm really, really sorry, but honestly, I couldn't be arsed. I had way too many things to do and too much Guinness to drink, and it doesn't drink itself. So, today we have just finished recording this week's episode. It should be up, well, it'd be up now, but it's only been recorded 1 hour before this went online. It's very fresh, but it is a fantastic episode. I'm so delighted to get it up. So, accept my apologies for it being late. This week's episode, we do have another guest episode. The guest is my mum. So, it's my mum, Gail. She's going to be on the podcast this week. It's a pretty cool episode. We're going to be talking about what it's like as a non-musician parent to be bringing up a musician, the challenges and difficulties that come with that, a little bit of advice for parents who may be in the same situation, and you'll get to hear more than a few stories about my own past that I wouldn't dare tell you myself. So, guys, go ahead and listen to that. Have a lot of fun. Just quickly before then, if you're a regular listener, you'll know what the crack is here. You can skip ahead about 45 seconds, but if you're new to the podcast, please give me 45 seconds of your time. The Inline G podcast is free, and it will always be free. That is a guarantee. However, if you wish to donate to the podcast and support it, you can now do so through the Patreon. On the screen now is the address, and for the audio listeners, it is patreon.com/the Inline G Flute podcast. Now, guys, it costs £5 a month, or whatever that is in your currency, okay? You get an episode of this podcast every single Friday, come rain or shine. Look, I'm recording one today, at the last minute, so I've not missed a single week, 78 weeks in a row. They're all free. If you listen to every episode and you think, fuck, I love the podcast, if I saw Gareth in a pub at the end of the month, I'll buy him a pint to say thank you. You can do it virtually. It's only a £5. So, I do everything for this podcast on my own. It is the definition of a small independent podcast. Audio editing, video editing, graphic design, scripts, etc., etc. Traveling to meet the guests. I do it all, okay? It's a passion project. I absolutely adore it. If you want to support, you can do that. You're keeping this podcast alive because, obviously, as you know, with the themes we talk about and the amount of swearing I do on this podcast, sponsors will not touch this podcast. And if they do, they want to make sure they have their own rules. You guys supporting the podcast means I can tell them to go and fuck themselves. So, if you can sign over there, it is incredibly appreciated. But listen, it's a tough time, especially if you're an artist. There is a cost of living crisis. So, if you can't afford it, it's fine. You can keep listening for free. The people who are paying are making sure that you can keep listening for free. So if you can do it, great. If you can't, don't worry, it's grand. Anyway, here is this week's Inline G Flute podcast with my mum. Well then, it's interesting then, that's where I kind of want to start this episode because you're a wedding celebrant now. You've only been for a few years. Before that, you've had various jobs. When we were growing up, you were working in retail and you worked in everywhere and everything. Just jobs like...
the health service. That was the biggest
health service as well, the latest. But never a professional musician in any capacity whatsoever?
No, never, ever.
Any experience in music as a kid?
As a child. I did as a child. As a school child. Do you know when you're in school and they give you an instrument to play? So I think it was about 13. Obviously, everybody in Northern Ireland plays a recorder at some point.
Yep.
So I did that. But then they gave me a saxophone to play.
Yeah.
So, and the only reason I took it up was because a couple of my best friends played the clarinet, and they used to go every Tuesday night up to Belfast. They got the bus to Belfast to the youth orchestra or whatever it was.
So that's right, yeah.
And I wanted to go too, and I couldn't
go to the big city of Belfast.
Yeah, and I couldn't go because I didn't have an instrument to play. So that's the real reason I took it up.
Okay, and how long did it last?
It didn't last very long because my stepmother at the time hated me practicing and hated the sound of it. So I kind of wasn't encouraged to take it up.
Well, see, now this is the thing as well. This is something I wanted to talk about a lot because I think it is very interesting. You can get a parent's perspective on raising a musician who wasn't a musician themselves at all. It's a very interesting aspect. But one of the big things you always hear, like when I talk to parents of my students who are not musicians, the one thing they always bring up is like practice. Yeah. Not just putting up with practice, but also, do you make them practice? How much should I make them practice? Should I shout at them to make them practice? So when I started picking, so I'm the oldest, when I started picking up the flute, obviously I picked it up because I didn't really get a choice in it.
Well, you didn't. I mean, that family that whenever I married into that family, I had children.
The Houstons for that.
That's Houston, sorry.
That family.
I didn't mean it to sound like that. Whenever I
Don't say their
married
name out loud in this podcast.
Whenever I married into your father's family, put it that sounds a bit gentler.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
There's a whole tradition there of flute.
Yeah.
So there was no question that you were going to be encouraged to pick it up at some point. And I didn't really have a say in that. It was going to happen whether I wanted it to or not.
Would you have had a say in it? If you had a choice, would you
I didn't have a say in it. You were always going to be doing it.
But what would you have chosen? If my dad said to you, you can choose to play an instrument or not, would you have said no?
No, I would have encouraged you to play an instrument.
Even the flute?
I probably wouldn't have cared what instrument, but yes, I would have encouraged you, because I think a child being able to play an instrument is a great skill and a great talent to have.
True. But with the flute being what it is in Northern Ireland, would you have been okay with the idea of us playing in a flute band? Because we did play in flute bands.
You did. And that is the one thing probably I maybe sat on the fence with, but I didn't have a lot of say in.
Okay, in what sense?
Because your father's family belonged to bands and they were brought up in that tradition. I kind of wasn't, really.
No, not at all. Yeah.
There was no, you'd have went out to watch the bands on the 12th of July. That was it. Yeah. That's the only influence they had in my life.
Did you have a negative idea of flute bands before that?
Probably a little bit.
You can totally say this, I'm not team flute band here.
Yeah, no, probably would have. Yeah, I
in what
wouldn't
sense?
have
What would
wanted
have been
you
the
to do
problem?
that. I wanted to bring you up to be totally unbiased.
Politically.
Yeah, politically unbiased. I didn't want you to have an opinion one way or the other. So the idea of joining a flute band that was solely Protestant and let's face it, a lot of the bands at that time were anti-Catholic, and so I didn't want that for you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to promote that side of it.
Yeah, I get that.
I didn't really like his, to be honest, I didn't really like his walking on the 12th of July and parading, and I didn't like that whole side of it.
No, so we did that as kids, me and my brother Ben. Obviously we joined, we learned flute and flute bands through Granda on the other side and my dad's side. But part of the thing with playing with flute bands was we did a lot of contests, which were great fun and they were nice, but we did parade as well. Yeah. And you would wear the sort of army style uniform, nearly the British Army style uniform, and you would parade on the 12th of July, and it's very Protestant, that.
It is. So it's very orange. I mean, the 12th of July is orange. There's no getting around it. And I didn't want to encourage that side of it. Okay.
And how did you feel when we did do it then?
I kind of went along with it. I did keep a close eye on it, and I wasn't really bothered whether you did it or not. But to be honest, that part of it was heavily influenced, and I didn't really have a big say in it. Yeah. I mean, obviously, as your mama could have said, no, they're not doing it, but you know.
But do you think my dad gave that much of a shit either? Because he's not musical either.
He would have been very influenced by your grandparents.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have went against them.
Because that was the only reason. Because I don't think he was that keen on us playing flute either. I don't think he would have given a shit.
I don't think he was bothered either way.
I think he was more concerned if we played football or not.
Yeah, I'd say you're probably right.
Which we did.
You're
and
probably
we're shite at it. So thank God we didn't choose that one as a career. Because I would not be playing for Chelsea, I'll tell you that. But yeah,
despite what you thought.
I know. Well, because my dad didn't play the flute either. Totally non-musical. No. In our house, the two of us were.
He's the only one of his siblings that did not.
He played the flute for one night, which for Houston is not a lot. No. Because he had to try it, obviously.
But music wasn't a big thing for him either. Oh. I loved
any
music.
Kind of music, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, he had a few favourite bands, obviously, from when he was growing up and when he was a teenager. Yeah. But he wasn't driven by music. To me, music makes the world go round.
Yeah, I know. That was one thing. I think growing up in the house, now that you mention it, growing up around the house, there wasn't a lot of music in the house. It's not like we would have played CDs all the time, or
no, me
just
maybe.
In the car. You would have played CDs in the car,
yeah.
But it's not like you hear those families that grow up with music all around them all the time. They go to concerts together. They, the parents let them hear different bands and stuff, and they play vinyls for them and all that.
I wouldn't have done that.
But
that wouldn't have been in my. I don't know. That wouldn't really have been in my DNA.
Yeah,
I would have went to concerts and things, but I would never really have thought of. Yeah, encouraging it or influencing you in that way. Yeah, you told me what bands you wanted to go and see when you started to be that age.
I know, and I went to a lot of bands, and none of them were flute bands either. I tell you that. Yeah. I was going to see some awful bands.
So no, I wouldn't have been in that world.
Yeah, so then what's it like coming into the world as a parent? Because, okay, when me and Ben picked it up, I don't think anyone thought... So Ben doesn't play anymore, even though arguably Ben was better than I was when we were younger.
Yeah.
I think we all knew that, but Ben doesn't touch the flute anymore. When we picked it up, I don't think there was ever this idea, in my mind anyway, that it could have been a career.
No, definitely not. When you were growing up, if you'd have said to you, what do you want to be when you grow up? There would have been the usual, I want to be a footballer.
Yeah, shite.
Yeah, you know, the usual things. I want to be a firefighter. But the big one, that you stuck to was, I want to be an accountant.
I was dying to be an accountant. It's now I think back, why?
It was so random.
I know, and we're talking like young as well. I think I was like 5 or 6, I was saying.
Yeah, from that age right up until, I don't know, like early teens, it was...
I want to be an accountant.
I want to be an accountant.
Now that you're saying it out loud, that is awful, isn't it?
I have no
There's
idea
no
where
imagination in
that
that
came
child, is there? You could be an accountant if you want, son. Who's going to stop you from doing that? It's not that
if
hard.
you'd have told me you wanted to be Prime Minister, I'd have encouraged you
True,
and
you
said,
would have.
yeah, no bother, you could do it. But it was just so random.
I don't know. I think it came from liking maths.
Yeah.
I was very keen on maths when I was a kid.
Probably.
And I thought accountants did all their figures in their head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you and your Nana Pat actually had a very close thing there with the maths.
I remember this, yeah, as a kid.
You know, when they were minding you after school, if I was working, as soon as you walked in the door to Nana, it was, right, Nana, we'll do multiplying today. We'll do dividing today. And she would have had all these sums all sitting ready.
Written out in a bit of paper.
All written out ready for you to do.
I just got stuck in. That was my day.
Yeah. That was fun. That was your fun activity.
Says a lot, doesn't
You
it?
know, we weren't getting out board games or anything. She was getting out the maths.
Oh, God. Thinking back to that, yeah. But one thing I wasn't doing, actually, so when I started picking up flute now, we played in bands. I don't remember. Honestly, I don't think I ever remember practicing. Do you have memories of me practicing?
What age were you? You were about 7 when you started to play.
From what I'm told, I started at 4 for a couple of weeks and give it up, but I was about 7 when I wanted to play.
Yeah.
Because Granda was obviously teaching flute after work every day in the house, and I heard it a wee bit, and I was like, here, I wouldn't mind playing that. So about 7, but I don't, until I was about 15, I don't have any recollections of me. I don't even think I had a music stand in the house when I was a kid. I don't remember practicing at all.
I never made you practice.
No, and was that deliberate?
You maybe would have a little bit, but I certainly wasn't saying to you, right, you've got a lesson on Monday, you need to be practicing.
Never.
I never did that.
Why was that?
Well, to me it was, if you want to do it, you'll do it. Mm-hmm. You know, you were going to see your teacher every week. If your teacher was saying you need to learn this, this and this, it's up to you to learn it.
Yeah, I totally agree, yeah.
I wasn't going to force it and I wasn't going to make you do it. Because once you make a child do something...
It's not fun anymore.
It's not fun.
I suppose that's the thing as well. At that age, we wanted it to be fun. We had no idea of making it a career or to be serious about it. I think if it said, like, we always wanted you to be a classical musician, it'd be different. You would make me practice.
Yes, I probably would have.
But we didn't. You know, the flute was just a list, one of the long list of things that we were just doing as kids. We tried everything.
Yeah, and I didn't keep it solely, you know, music was your focus.
No.
You know, I wanted you to have a well-rounded, you know...
Yeah, childhood.
Yeah. You know, where you went to football, you went to different groups, you went to different things.
Karate.
Social life, you went to karate. I probably made you go to karate more than I made you go to music.
That's true, actually, and I wasn't very good at karate either. But that was
all
a
these
family
physical
thing,
things you wanted to do.
I know. Karate as well. Was it not Uncle Stephen or someone? Or I called him Uncle Stephen. I don't even was.
You called him. He was your father's cousin.
There you are. He ran the karate club in Lisburn.
He ran the karate club, so you had to dip your toe on that. You went to
Salto.
I was going to say you went to Salto's gym.
I hated it.
To the kiddies classes at Salto's gym. You learned to swim.
I know, which is funny now.
No, no, it definitely wasn't funny at the time.
Why?
Because you didn't want to go in the water.
Still don't.
Mm-hmm. So everything was great until I took you down, and you actually learned to swim at Stranmillis.
Oh, that's right.
Stranmillis Teaching College.
Yeah,
they
college,
had a swimming pool. So we had you booked in there. And no, you were fine until it came time to say, right, jump in the water.
Which is the most important bit, probably.
Yeah, I want to swim, but I don't actually want to get in the water to do it.
I remember vaguely like sitting at the side of the pool and refusing to go in.
Yeah, I was kind of mortified until the end. I think I felt like just pushing you in to get it over and jump in.
Get in, I've paid 30 quid for this kitten.
Yeah, that way you speak.
God.
You know the way parents speak without moving their lips.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm getting flashbacks of that now. Yeah. A long list of things. I remember we did horse riding as well.
Yeah, so
that? All that
I
stuff?
wanted you to have... Yeah, if it was there, I wanted you to try
Yeah.
it.
So music
Yeah.
was never something you thought, oh, this is going to be their career.
No, definitely not.
But then surely as the years go on and we're doing it more and more and more, there must have been a point. What was the point when you thought, oh, maybe he's going to turn around and say, I want to be a musician?
When you told me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But I was about 17 at that
And
point.
you were
wasn't I?
young. No, you were younger than that. But one thing that really stands out for me was when you first learnt, I think you were about 7.
Yeah.
And you practiced and practiced without telling me. And then on Christmas Day,
Yeah.
as a surprise, you stood, because the whole family were there. There's like 13 round the table for dinner. And after dinner was over, you and your granddad gave each other a wee nod. And away you went and got your flute. And you had learned to play Winter Wonderland. Because I told you it was
your
my
favourite
favourite
song.
Christmas song.
It still is, isn't it? Yeah.
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 So you were always a performer. You always wanted to
Really?
entertain. Yeah.
Nah.
Well, I did tell you about the ice cream incident when you were about 4.
Oh, God, yeah. I love that story because it was...
You could hold a room without any bother.
Yeah, but that was also alcohol influence too, wasn't it?
Well, it kind of was, yeah. Maybe there's something in there. Maybe it was my fault. You've turned out the way you are. I don't know. But yeah.
Because it was alcoholic ice cream it was given when I was 4.
Yes, we were
Nana
all
tells the
sitting
story all
around
the
the room
time.
and we had, I think it was like rum and raisin ice cream.
But with actual rum
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, do not give that to the child.
because it says alcohol on it.
But somebody did. And then about 20 minutes later, all of a sudden, you were just in charge of the entire room. And you were like, okay, you're going to do this and you have to do this and you have to ask me questions and I'll answer them. And you kept us entertained for about an hour.
And look what we're doing now, making a living out of it.
Yeah. And you were in school. Yeah, you always wanted to be in the choir. And you always wanted to be an entertainer.
Yeah, I enjoyed being. I like attention. That's definitely. Don't think that's a surprise to anybody here.
Yeah. And then when you went to high school, when you first started high school, you still weren't really, certainly wasn't a career choice,
Didn't feel like it to me.
but you, they kind of knew the family name. And obviously
True.
the Houston name in the flute world in Northern Ireland was pretty well known.
Yeah, yeah.
And your uncle had been to that school. So when
Yeah.
when the music teacher heard your name, he was like, oh, have we got another musician
Here's
here?
the latest Houston coming in.
Yeah. So, you went there, but it certainly wasn't you didn't really pick it as a career choice until you were about 14, 15, what would you be? Fourth year, maybe?
Probably around the time you're choosing your GCSEs. And
Yeah.
I was picking music as a subject. Honestly, at the time,
Then-
I felt it was just because I was good at it. That's probably the reason why I picked it, because it felt like the path of least resistance. I didn't have to revise much for music. I didn't have to work much on it because I was good at it. Maybe my memory's not as good as what you are now.
Maybe. But you'd had years of that, of going to different competitions and
True, I did the Alby one, yeah.
you were good in it. Your biggest thing was you never believed you were good at it.
No, that's true.
It was your own self-belief, which is still true now.
Do you reckon that was the case when I was 14 as well? You could see that?
Yeah. And I think you went, sometimes I hated those competitions, where you went to play and sometimes the judge was behind a little curtain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was fine. But the ones where the judge was sitting looking at you, I felt like going home over and trailing him across the table and saying, did you pick my son? Like, what's wrong there? That was perfect.
Excuse me. Yeah.
But those kind of and like I'm not one of these parents that's you have to let all the children win and you teach them all that, but I do believe they have to get a touch of the real world, and there's a winner and there's, I don't want to say the word loser, but there's people who don't win.
Yeah.
But it did give you a bit of a complex.
Do you reckon?
Because you didn't win.
I never won. That was the whole thing. I remember as a kid, I never won any competitions.
So then you never thought,
Always
I'm
second.
not quite good enough.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
I don't remember feeling like that, but it's hard to remember what I felt like when I was 14. There was a lot going on. Yeah, that's interesting.
And maybe it was me. Maybe I was devastated for you, but I could see it in you. I could see it was affecting your self-confidence a little bit.
Do you think it would have affected
that
my
annoyed me.
self-confidence outside of music as well then? think it was a general thing, like the knock-on effects of not feeling good as a musician in my general life? Do you think it would have affected that?
I don't know. I didn't really see it in your general life.
Okay.
I certainly saw it there, you know. But then I don't know what year you got a new music teacher in school.
Oh, Mr. Faulkner, that's right.
And that completely changed because
he
encouraged you so much.
That's right. You're bringing this up. It makes total sense. I totally blocked this out. But yeah, Mr. Faulkner came in when I was about 13, 14.
Yeah. And from that moment, you spent every hour in school in the music department.
I did. That was true, yeah. To the detriment of my other classes.
Yeah, I do remember one teacher particularly pulling me to the side and saying he misses classes. Every time I go to look for him, he's in the music department.
And I used to just not go to class.
And I was kind of a bit like, part of me wanted to say, so? You know, that's what he wants to do.
Leave him alone.
And the other part of me wanted to be the good parent and say, well, you kind of need to go to class. You know? I can't encourage you to miss classes either.
No. But I wasn't missing class. I was smoke behind the bike sheds. You know,
well, exactly.
Music, and then I smoked behind the bike sheds after.
Stop. No,
I
you didn't.
Smoke behind the bike sheds now. I can barely smoke behind a bike shed now, and I'm 32.
No. Very glad to hear it.
But then, yeah, but Mr. Faulkner, you would have got the parent-teacher evenings and all. Would he have talked about that?
Yes, he would have.
Yeah?
And I remember one quote, actually.
Do you know what? You're about to say this. I haven't heard you say this quote in about 10 years, but I know exactly what you're about to say.
Yeah. And I remember because it was the first kind of parent-teachers meeting with him that I had when you had obviously were in music class all the time. Yeah. And he said, Gareth just oozes music.
Yeah, oozes music. Yeah, I remember you saying that.
It's an odd phrase to use, and it's always stuck.
It is an odd phrase,
has stuck in my head.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what he meant by that. I wonder if he just meant I loved performing, or...
You just had music everywhere. Music was just in you.
Yeah. It felt like it when I was at that age. I think, yeah, now you're saying it, I feel like Mr. Faulkner did give me that kind of wee boost to go ahead and try to be a bit further.
And then after that, it was...
serious.
Yeah. Music's going to be my career. But you didn't want, when it come to like college and you choosing all of that, like you didn't want to go down a very traditional route.
In what sense?
You wanted to go to music college.
Because the traditional what you're talking about is going to military music.
Well, in Northern Ireland, you didn't have a lot of choice.
There's no music colleges here.
There's no music colleges here. It wasn't really encouraged. You
never talked about.
I mean, even when it came to looking for music colleges, like your careers teacher didn't tell you. You had to go and find it all out yourself.
And this is like not pre-internet. I'm not that old, but it was.
Yeah, and there
the
was
internet
you
was in its infancy.
And one of your friends,
Richard, the harpist,
who wanted to go to music college as well. He played the harp.
Yeah.
And it wasn't encouraged. If you wanted to do music, then it was teach music.
Yeah.
Or join the military and join a military band.
Yeah.
There
British
wasn't
military.
really any other choice.
No, I'd never met anyone in my life that had done something different.
No,
every musician I knew
neither.
taught or played in a military band.
And then you were obviously introduced to like is it the Ulster Youth Orchestra?
Yeah. Well, the City of Belfast Youth Orchestra I played in.
Yeah. So you were introduced to that, but that introduced that world, that orchestral world.
Yeah. I went to that on Saturday mornings. I never got into the main orchestra again. I think also my heart wasn't in it because I was playing football a wee bit at the time as well when I was 14, and it was also on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I loved music, but I hated the people in the orchestra.
Yeah.
I know it's strange.
It was very, very cliquey.
Yeah. And I remember being told as well when I joined the youth orchestra, I was the youngest ever person to get into the youth orchestra. Yeah. They were only about 2 or 3 years older than me, but that age group at like between 12 and 14 is a big group jump. And
it's a very influential group.
Yeah, I felt like maybe I'm realising it now. At the time I wouldn't have realised, but there was definitely a touch of classism as well. You know,
yeah,
I think
there probably was.
The working class flute band boy from Lisburn going into like this sort of the great and the good of Belfast, you know, they all had that accent and they were all a little bit posh, and you know, they were aware of music college and they were aware of classical music and they knew what composers were, and I had no idea about any of that. I just knew what I liked. Yeah, and I never really enjoyed it for that reason. But then that must have been strange for you, because obviously when I went from like flute bands to going towards slightly more serious stuff, I remember going to Colin Fleming as well as a teacher. And that was sort of when I stopped getting lessons from Granda and went to get actual flute lessons from someone when I was about 14, I think. Going into that one was a big shock. Yeah,
that was a huge step. Even the very fact that you wanted to go and try a different music teacher and try a different influence.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, let's go for it. You know, why not get influence from as many different, you know, perspectives as possible?
It's a very healthy attitude, yeah.
Rather than stick to one attitude.
Yeah.
Not one attitude, one influence.
Viewpoint, or yeah.
You know, because I mean, when you were growing up and being taught, you were taught by family members.
Yeah. Well.
So it was, apart from school, it was good to get another perspective, another viewpoint.
Yeah. But then Colin was I don't remember much of my time with Colin. I was only there for him for a year, but I feel like it did change me a lot. But
he was
what
tough.
do you guys remember about it?
I just remember him being tough. I remember you coming out of your class. You loved Colin as a teacher.
Yeah.
But he did nearly make you cry quite a few times.
Oh, I cried a lot of times with Colin, yeah.
You know, he was tough, but it didn't make you stop wanting to go to him.
But then, is that not weird for you as a parent, where suddenly I'm going from, you know, having a bit of crack with music, playing in the bands and all that, to suddenly getting this new teacher? It's very exciting.
Yeah.
And then the first week I go out there, I come out crying.
Oh, I was ready to go in and sort him out.
Would you actually not do something or say something? No? You ever thought about it? No?
I would have, if I'd have come face to face with him, and I did come face to face with him at one concert, and he must have been performing and we were there. I don't know the circumstances.
Yeah.
But, oh, yeah, I do remember. I introduced myself to him.
Okay.
You know, and I can't remember what I said, but I wouldn't have said anything. I might have been tempted, but I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want... But that would have been you too. You'd have been like, no, Mum, don't you say anything.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, I'm going to go in and have a word with him. And you'd have been like, no, Mum, don't. You'll make it worse. Don't.
Yeah, because I think the way the lessons worked was you had to leave me off at his door on a Sunday. I went in on my own, and you just had to park outside, and it was...
Yeah, it was way up in Ballyclare.
Yeah, and just shithole as well, but anyway, you were... Sorry. Sorry to Ballyclare there.
No offence to Ballyclare, yeah.
But I remember the lessons, they weren't even an hour. It was sort of like, Gareth will be out when he's out.
Yeah.
You wait outside in the car, I'll send him out when he's done. And you never met him, you never spoke to him. It was just, I'd come out the door an hour and a half later sometimes in tears, and that was it.
Yeah, he didn't even come to the door. The door opened by magic and you just went in.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Isn't that mad? You never
Looking
spoke
back's
to him?
probably a bit creepy.
I know. Here, you had a lot of faith in him as well, sending your son him. There you go, Gareth, I'll see you in a couple of hours. Go on up to the man's house.
I didn't even see the
Have you
man
met the
behind
man?
the door. Like, he didn't open the door and, well, you know, give a wave or anything.
He just went, right, get up them stairs.
Away you go.
I'll come see you in a couple of hours. Time was a lot more lax in the 90s, wasn't it?
It certainly was. Well, would have been the 2000s then.
I remember my dad had a few issues with it. I think once, because my dad took me once to a lesson. My dad's not the kind of man that likes waiting about.
Yeah.
He gets a bit nervous with time. You know, he's very punctual. And I think Colin came out to him once and said, Gareth will be done when he's done it. But I was like, he'll be done in an hour. And I'll be here to pick him up in an hour. I was like, oh God, please don't start a row with him. Because this is the most important flute player in the country. He's a serious musician. Please don't start a row because of this. But then, was it about that time you thought, oh, Gareth's going to do this as a career?
It was in and around then. No, you just came home and you went... you just announced, I want to be a classical musician. I want to be a musician, but I want to play in an orchestra.
And what did you think when I said that?
That was your thing. I want to play in an orchestra. I was kind of like, I don't want to say a bad word.
You can say bad words in this podcast. Right?
No, your granddad might listen and then I'd be in trouble.
I'm not.
Sorry, Dad. Yeah, part of me was thinking, fuck.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I don't know anything about it. I don't know where to start. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I don't know. I had no idea.
So what did you do?
I didn't know any classical music. It wasn't a world that I was familiar with.
Yeah.
The first thing I started doing was playing classic FM.
Seriously?
Yeah. I tried to learn
idea,
so that when you started mentioning a few things, I thought, well, at least I know a little bit. You know?
Yeah. You know the composers' names and all that kind of crap.
Well, it was kind of the same with football too, because I thought, I'm a single mum here with two boys. If I don't get an interest in football, I'm going to be left behind.
That's true, yeah.
So that was basically it. I
why we
wanted
went
to
to
learn
football,
what you were into.
That's very cute. That was very nice. But classical music getting into it then, so what else did you do? Or how else did you deal with it? Because this was...
A lot of it, I would say, you probably influenced me.
Okay.
And it was a case of, what do we need to do here? What are we, how are we going to do this? What exactly do you need to do?
Do you remember like any of the
then,
challenges or anything coming up? You go, oh shit, what's that? Or I'm even thinking of things like instruments, buying instruments. I had to get a good flute as well.
Yeah, I do remember that. I will say, if it had been down to me, I would have panicked.
Yeah.
But we were very fortunate because of your grandparents.
Yeah.
And because you started your music career with him and you started learning with him, your grandfather was always, you know, when it comes to your music, he'll take care of it.
Financially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he paid for your lessons and he
I know.
encouraged all of that.
Did he pay for the lessons with Colin as well then when I was doing that?
Yes, I think so.
Wow, okay.
I don't remember
Yeah.
paying any money for it. Good job, I probably wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah, because there's lessons, there's sheet music you're buying all the time.
Yeah.
Instrument repairs.
Do you know, I remember the music piling up and piling up. Yeah. And I do remember sometimes for Christmas you'd have asked for sheet music and asked for some of those things.
I remember that. That's amazing.
And I'm going online. And online was very new then. So it was nearly going to libraries. It was going to find out all these things. You know, nothing was as accessible as it is now.
Especially because even in
You know,
Northern
you
Ireland,
click a button now and you can get things.
We had no music shop here either, really. You have Matches down in Belfast, but it wasn't a classical music shop.
No.
It had a couple of books in the corner.
Yeah.
But we had no like expert you could go to and speak to someone. 'Cause I think that would have been the solution for everything is you'll know a fella in Belfast. You drive down, there'll be a guy down there who knows everything you need to know. There wasn't. There was no one there.
There was nobody.
Like the nearest way you would have got educated on classical music would be to go to the mainland. You'd have to fly over to England or Scotland to get an education on this.
Yeah. So whenever you knew you wanted to go to college, that was the big
Yeah.
thing, was picking like university.
Yeah.
It was never going to be university. It was always going to be, I want to go to music college.
Yeah.
And you had to audition for them. So
Yeah.
that was a big thing because there was nowhere here. So you had to book flights and book to go to all these places.
It also wasn't cheap, you know. Paying for flights to London
like
and Scotland.
Edinburgh. Yeah, I went to Edinburgh, London, Manchester and Cardiff.
Right. And Cardiff as well, yeah. Yeah. I remember going to all those. It's a
but
weird
even
thing.
learning how the process worked and what happened, you know, it's not just a case of you apply for university and if you get the grades, you get in.
You get in, yeah.
You know, it wasn't like that.
I know, because even for me, I wasn't really sure what I remember going to school and asking my careers teacher, like, you know, I want to apply for this.
Yeah.
And there was even a different application system. You know, everyone else in the UK used UCAS, which was the university application portal. And music colleges weren't on it. And it was called QCAS for the conservatoires. And the school had never even registered with it. And I went to a good school. You know, I went to Wallace, it was a decent school. They had no knowledge of this. And when I remember even going to the auditions, I just remember them sending you out a letter saying, please prepare this kind of piece of music. I had no idea what to really prepare.
We really didn't. And like I went with you to most of the auditions. I think there was only one that I didn't go to. And like I had no idea if we were doing the right thing, if we were...
Do you remember the first audition? I think the first one was Glasgow.
Yeah, Glasgow.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. I knew it was Scotland. I couldn't remember it was Glasgow or Edinburgh.
Do
So
you
it was
remember?
obviously Glasgow. Yeah, I remember going in and we had no idea what to expect. But there was a current student there, and he came over, introduced himself. He played the oboe.
I don't remember this well.
He played the oboe.
Okay.
So you were kind of in his music group,
Yeah.
and he started talking away, and he was great.
Okay.
He answered all of your questions, took you through school, all the basic things
Like what? Do you remember?
that I had no idea about, you know, what kind of classes you would have, even student accommodation and,
Yeah.
you know, all of that kind of thing. He talked us through the whole thing.
Okay.
And then we went into this big, massive auditorium, and they were doing a performance. You know, the school was
that's
doing
right,
a performance. And that was it. You were totally hooked.
Really? Yeah.
And then you had to... Did you audition for that?
I did. I got put it out in
Yeah.
the first round. I remember it. I always remember the actual auditions themselves.
That was Manchester that had rounds.
Manchester. Oh yeah, no, they didn't have rounds in Glasgow, did they? That's right. Manchester, they had rounds. You're right. No, Glasgow didn't have rounds.
Yeah. Yeah, Manchester was like the flipping X Factor.
It was. Yeah, I remember it.
It was nerve-wracking.
Should
It
you
was
remember we met
really
that?
nerve-wracking.
We met that wee girl as well. And was she on our flight as well? And she was from here, flute player
Yes.
too. We never heard of her, and she was over with her dad, and he
Yeah.
didn't have a clue about it either. And the four of us were sort of going, "Right, fuck, is it your turn now?" Right?
Yeah, we were like, how do you live in Northern Ireland? I mean, don't mean how you live in Northern Ireland. We'd never heard of you before, but
usually that's the
you
case.
know,
Yeah, it's a small place.
But the flute world would have been a very
Yeah.
small community, and I was like, how did we not know her?
I know. I remember. Manchester was awful. I remember that because the round thing was really difficult because
And
I
your
didn't
flute
know.
broke.
God, do you remember that the night before? We had to drive all
Yeah,
night.
one of the keys of your flute broke.
It broke.
And then you were really nervous at the audition in case it went again.
Yeah, and it did. I remember going, I hated that audition because I think in Glasgow, I was so oblivious to what the standard was or what anything was.
Yes.
I was like, I'll go in
Probably
and play.
the first one, it wasn't a bother.
Yeah, because you didn't know if you did well or not. You just played. And I thought, great, happy days. I'm a brilliant flute player. Happy days. This is wee buns. And then when I went to Manchester where they did
Did you
the
get
rounds,
it? Did you get to Glasgow?
did I get a reserve offer maybe? I think
You
I
got
a
really
reserve.
good feedback.
I did. The feedback was always kind of the same, but Manchester, I remember getting thrown out in the first round because I remember you had to do the first round and come back a few hours later and they put a
Yes.
list up on the wall
And it was awful.
and you had to read it in front of everybody
Yeah.
to find your name on it. I remember it was horrible.
But you did get through to the second round.
No, I don't think I did.
Or did we come home?
We came home.
We come home. That was it. Yeah, we come home.
I remember.
Yeah.
I think did we change our flights and come home early?
Because going to Glasgow was the first time you kind of thought, yeah, do you know what? I could do this.
Yeah. And then Manchester really knocked the stuff out of
Yeah,
me.
it really did. It knocked you for 6. Then I think you had London in between.
I think so.
And then you had Cardiff.
Cardiff
Cardiff was a completely different. As soon as we went into Cardiff, you just knew there was
Really?
a different vibe about it.
You mean the city or the college?
The college, and I thought, this is the one. I just knew
That's so
this
interesting.
was the one. And I didn't know if you obviously know his name. I can't remember his name, but the guy who was on the panel
Yeah.
was from Ballymena.
Roger. Yeah.
Because he was able to
That's
talk
right.
to you about being from, Northern
Yeah.
Ireland and doing.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is just meant to be.
Yeah, he grew up. He left Ballymena when he was 7 to move to Australia to play there. He spent most of his life there. But yeah, when he heard the accent,
Yes.
he was very taken with me. And it put me in a lot of ease, that I think, as well. Because during the interview questions and all, he was saying, did you play in flute bands? And suddenly
Yes.
I was able to say, yeah, I played in flute bands. I was talking to a panel about my experience. And it made me feel like, oh, wow, okay. You know about flute bands here?
Yeah.
Grand. I've played in flute bands. I could say which ones. And he'd be like, oh, that's a good band and that's not a good band. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Maybe I'm not as
Yeah.
far away from this world as I thought I was. I got a very good feeling about Cardiff. Although I do remember even in Cardiff at that point, I'd accepted I wasn't going to music college because I last minute did a UCAS application and we went to see the university as well because I was convinced I wasn't getting into music college.
We did go and see the university.
Yeah.
Went to see the student accommodation. Went to see
Yeah.
everything there.
I was so convinced. I'd
Cardiff
applied
was
for,
a nice city.
It was. I'd applied for psychology because I remember thinking, but then in the end,
Psychology.
I know.
It's totally random.
I know as well. Couldn't do accountancy. They were filled up. I remember getting. Do you remember the day I got accepted into Cardiff?
Yes, I remember you getting the letter. Didn't you get a letter?
No,
or was it
It
online?
was online. I remember
It
the
was
moment I
online
checked. It was
then.
in school. I checked. I don't know. I must have
Yeah.
phoned you. Did I? It must have been school.
You either phoned me or we did have mobile phones then, so you probably sent me a message.
Yeah. I remember reading it in class and being. I still think that's the greatest achievement I've ever had as a musician. Weirdly,
Really?
I've never felt a buzz like that. Just getting into college really validated me. I thought I'm not
Yeah.
as shy as this.
But I
thought
do
I was.
remember it wasn't dependent on your results.
On my A levels, yeah.
It was an unconditional offer,
Yeah.
which made it even more special.
Yeah, because I was like, right, I'm in now. I don't have to
Yeah.
do it. Oh, yeah. Which is why I didn't go to school for the last year. Didn't
Well,
get great results in that either, but yeah, it was good. So, but then at that point, I'm going to music college. Is that the point where you think, fuck, he really could be doing this for a job now? It's not a hobby. It's not an interest. This is really going to be his
I
career.
knew, yeah. I knew then.
Oh,
And I've always said when you went, the first time you went, do you remember us going over?
to Cardiff?
Yeah.
When
to
we
Cardiff.
moved there?
Yeah. When we moved and we had everything packed and like you do for a student,
Yeah.
with 5 suitcases between us at the
Yeah.
time. And then obviously we'd buy loads of stuff when we were over there. But you were able to go online and check who you were going to be sharing with.
Yeah. I found
And
out-
we were so excited you were going into halls.
Yeah.
It was such an exciting time.
It was really exciting.
But I knew once you went there, when I came home, and I went, that's him. He'll, certainly not for a long time, and I thought I don't think he'll ever be back home again.
Really?
Yeah, I knew you wouldn't be back home.
Wow. I'm curious as well, at that time, when you're talking to my dad, because you were separated since I was, 10 or 9?
Yeah.
Would you have talked about it? Would you have said, like, would my dad have been like, oh God, he's going to be a musician, I don't know what to do here?
No. I remember us going for dinner when we were in Cardiff, because you had found all the other first years and you were away.
I wanted to go drinking with him,
yeah. And we were kind of like, what are we going to do now? We thought, might as well go for dinner.
Oh, I guess I remember you telling me. I was like, my mum and dad are on dinner together for the first time in 10 years. My mummy and daddy went for dinner together.
So, and we talked about it then. And I don't think your dad really had any, he had even less concept of it than I did.
Yeah. What did he say?
You know,
remember?
and it wasn't, I know, it wasn't a real job for him.
Yeah.
It was going to university, and then you'll finish university and come home and get a real job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, no, this is going to be his career.
Yeah.
You know, we need to encourage this.
Did you have that conversation then?
Yeah.
You had to say? Wow, okay.
We had quite a few conversations along those lines over the years.
Yeah.
You know, as you progressed further and further. And it was, no, this is his job. This is what he's going to do.
Yeah.
You know. And I think his fear too was, what future is there in it?
Which is,
you're not going to make money at it. You're not going to, you know, you're not going to do all of that.
Which are reasonable fears. I think every parent has that fear, don't they?
We had the conversation a couple of times, you know, where you could be in an orchestra and still do other things. And we had that conversation.
Yeah.
I wasn't really worried. I don't remember being worried. I was more worried about you being away from home than I was about you doing music as a career.
Really? Okay.
I was more worried as a parent.
Okay. In what
where
sense?
their child has gone to university.
Yeah. Which is, again, is
and
a totally
gone
normal
out
thing.
in the big... I was more worried about that than I was about your career choice.
Yeah. I know.
But you were very focused then. You knew what you wanted to do. You knew you wanted to practice. So I had no worries there.
Really? Okay. With career?
Your attitude by then was, I know what I have to do to get where I want to be. And you did it.
Yeah.
I never once had to say to you, are you rehearsing? Are you practicing? Are you doing this? I never once had to say that.
Yeah. Now that you're saying that, I don't think I ever had that conversation with anybody. That was one thing I never worried about. In general, when I decided I wanted to do music, the easy bit was practicing. I was like, it's great to practice. I can practice, no problems at all. Practicing was grand. The hard bit was understanding the world, getting to know the people, working out what the fuck all this stuff was.
Yeah, you'd have been quite frustrated at that part.
Yeah, I was very frustrated at college as well.
There was probably a few times when I felt like giving you a slap and saying, like, you know, wind your neck in here.
Yeah, and why? Because of what?
You just would have been a wee bit of a pain in the arse about it, you know. Because the music world and all at that time would have been a wee bit pretentious.
A wee bit?
Do you know? And I was like, no, sorry, keep your feet in the ground.
Yeah.
You know, you're not getting drawn into that world.
Yeah. Were you worried that I was going to get drawn into?
You maybe would have been trying too hard for some things.
Do you reckon? In what sense?
And it frustrated you that you didn't. I think part of it was frustrated because you never had the same opportunities as some of your roommates had, as some of your classmates had.
I was very bitter about that.
You know, so that was tough.
Yeah, I'm still bitter about that, to be totally honest. And that's very childish.
But no, it wasn't. I mean, it was a huge. You know, going to college is a huge adjustment.
Yeah,
Do you know, it's a life-changing thing, so you have to learn to transition that.
True.
Then you throw in all the extras and all the other bits, and it's tough. And your first year, you struggled to find your way.
I remember that. I vividly remember loving college, loving my classes, and being like, oh my God, I get to study music. And I think the coolest thing was when I went to whatever class it was, I didn't know what I was going to study. I had no idea what you did at music college.
No.
I had no fucking clue like classes were, what you did every day, like what they did. I had no idea. And I went to the first class, I think it was harmony or something. And the guy was like a viola player or something in the orchestra. And I was like, he's in the orchestra. That's the orchestra that I watch on TV. And he plays in them. And I'm learning about music all day, every day. This is fucking class.
Yeah.
But everything else about it, I hated. I really didn't settle properly in Cardiff in the first year. I couldn't get on with my flatmates. They were great people and all, but they were so different to me.
Yeah.
They had these like posh English accents, and they just had a different world, and I just couldn't.
But I think that was you put that pressure on yourself.
Do you reckon?
It came back to that self-confidence thing, you know, that it's like, I'm not worthy to be here. And I'm like, they might have more money than you, but you're just as worthy to be here as they are.
Yeah. You know, Roger used to say that as well to me all the time. He was like, you need to stop walking into this building and looking up at it and being in awe of it every day, and actually just accepting you're here now and just get on with it. But I could never do that. Every time I came in, I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm here. In a good way and a bad way.
Yeah.
It was very overwhelming for me.
I mean, you were meant to be there.
Yeah. The first year was really tough. I remember I was coming home a lot as well, trying to book as many flights as I could to get back.
Music-wise, you thrived.
Yeah.
Otherwise, socially, etc., you floundered for the first year.
Yeah. What do you think that was? Do you think it's just because of the self-confidence then?
No, I think it was probably your flatmates who were silver spoon.
Very much so, yeah.
You
Some of
know.
them have like double-barreled surnames and all that kind of thing.
Like,
one of them,
you
his
know,
parents were like lords of the realm or something.
I know. Do you ever wonder what they do now?
Fuck. Yeah, well, I remember one of my flatmates, if his parents died, he would become a sir. And I was like, well, my mum and dad died, I'm not going to become a sir.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
There's a PlayStation in there I might be getting, but that's about it.
I know. And like, I remember teaching you how to cook. And us thinking, yeah, you could make like a pot of stew. You could make a pot of curry, you know, and your other roommates would be delighted. No. That just wasn't going to happen.
It was. I remember they all went to we didn't have Waitrose in Ireland either.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we went to Waitrose shopping. I was like, have you seen the prices of things on Waitrose?
Yeah, exactly.
It's £6 for eggs. I can't go to Waitrose.
Yeah, we had everything worked out, you know, how much, even down to it costs so much money to print paper every week.
Yeah.
You know, we had everything worked out down to the last penny.
A full budget, yeah, exactly how much money I was
and
spending
like you
on
lived
everything.
in like noodles, and
Yeah.
I think there was a wee shop not too far away from where your halls were that cheap food, cheap everything.
There was a wee place across the road that did sandwiches for like £2.
Yeah.
And I remember budgeting that in as well for myself. But that was no problem with me. Again, I thought that's what everyone did at university. And it probably is, but music college is a wee bit different.
Yeah.
And
I think that was it.
But do you guys remember coming over to visit or anything and meeting the teachers and getting involved in that world?
Yeah, I went over. I remember meeting Roger.
Yeah.
Your teacher. I think he was the only one I met, really. I probably met others, but he's the one that kind of,
yeah.
He took time to sit down with me and talk.
And what was that like when you got to see that world?
Probably, well, I had been when you went for your audition.
Yeah.
But to go now knowing that you were a student, that was completely different.
Yeah.
You know, but I was proud.
Yeah.
You know, I remember thinking, he's exactly where he's meant to be. He's doing well, and he's, you know, I was proud.
It's very nice to hear that.
And after speaking to Roger, and he spoke really highly of you.
Yeah, we got on great.
And I don't think he was just telling me what I wanted to hear. You know, he was genuine in what he said.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of faith in you, and a lot of, and that put my mind at ease.
Yeah, that made it easier then.
You know, and I do remember thinking, no, I'm really proud of him.
Good. Yeah, I remember it was difficult for that. Roger was very supportive as well because, yeah, I think that whole thing of my own self-confidence, it never really went away in music. I always had that little chip on my shoulder about myself.
It's never really went away.
I know. But maybe
for all musicians, it's like that. There's always, you walk off the stage and you think I could have done better.
I think there's an aspect of that to a certain extent.
You know.
And I think any musician listening to this, I'm sure we're all very aware of what it's like to have the existential crisis of like, fuck, what am I doing? Can I just go get a normal job and make some money and just, you know, make my life a lot easier for myself?
It was a struggle.
Yeah.
You know, financially, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
To get through 4 years of college.
Yeah.
You know, that financially, that's tough.
I know. When I finished the 4 years of Cardiff then, did you think, well, you said you were convinced I wasn't going to come home?
Yeah, I knew you wouldn't. From your very first day when you left, I knew you wouldn't be back home.
Yeah. And when I started talking about Paris, you remember that?
That was a completely different world.
Yeah.
I was like, Paris? Like, seriously? You know?
Yeah.
Like, that was unheard of here.
That was ridiculous, yeah. Even for me, that was like, fuck.
Yeah. And even telling family and telling people, like, nobody had ever done that before.
No, that was really beyond the pale.
You know, but you knew what you wanted to do. You knew where you wanted to go. And I remember you learning French and going over. And when you got into college and you had to learn to play, not playing French, because obviously the music notes are the same, but you know, you had to learn to take classes in French.
Yes, my classes were in French, yeah.
And finding somewhere to live, and it wasn't a picnic.
And I'm doing it all in French as well.
Yeah.
Finding apartments in French where, again, it wasn't like one of the situations where you could go like, we knew someone in Paris, you go, oh, someone's in Belfast and we can get him to help us out. I was just thrown into it. And I couldn't ring, not that I couldn't ring you guys for help, but I couldn't ring you guys and go, I can't find an apartment here in Paris, can you help me out a bit? You wouldn't have had a clue either.
We
None of
didn't
us had a
know.
clue.
I do remember saying to you, what can I do? You know, I don't know what I can do from here.
And there wasn't anything, I don't think.
Yeah.
What was it like when I told you I was going to Paris? Were you nervous about it? And, like, did you have a conversation with my dad as well about this?
I don't really remember having that conversation.
Okay.
Although I do remember, where were we playing? And James Galway, and James and Jeannie Galway were there. Well, he was doing a masterclass.
The masterclass. I just moved to Paris. That's right, in the Grand Opera House in Belfast.
Had you been, or were you just about to go?
I think I'd
you'd been accepted,
and all,
but you hadn't moved.
But I hadn't started yet. Yeah, I was due to start in a few weeks.
Yeah, and he was doing a masterclass, and he did, you know, when he was doing his 1-to-1 with you.
Yeah.
And then you said, I'm going to Paris, and he had lived in Paris.
Yeah, he'd studied there too. Yeah.
So there was that connection when he was asking you about it, but he didn't sugarcoat it either.
Oh, do you remember that as well? Actually, fucking bringing back a lot of memories. You remember what he said?
I can't remember the exact words, but I do remember thinking, who do you think you are? You know?
Yeah, there was a bit of that. He was very like, you need to play a bit faster, you need to play a bit better, you can't be going over to Paris.
Yeah,
and
you can't go to Paris and do that. You can't.
And his whole thing was, you can't go to Paris and say you're from Belfast, because the last boy to go to Belfast and study the flute was me in Paris, and you know, you have to keep the reputation up. And I was like, all right, Jimmy, right.
I know. And as a mom, I was ready to say, who do you think you are?
Yeah,
you know,
excuse me.
you might be James Galway, but do you know what I mean? I'm his mum, yeah.
I remember, no, do you not
Nobody's
remember
going to stick to my son like that.
Because at that time, I was really struggling to find an apartment, and one of the big problems was the price of rent in Paris.
Yes.
And my dad was cracking up about it. He was like, it's too expensive, you have to find somewhere cheaper. If we're going to help you out financially, it needs to be cheaper. And I think it was something about, I was looking for a flat, and Galway had said, like, how many hours are you practicing?
Yeah.
And I said, I'm doing like 3 hours. He's like, you can't do 3 hours now if you're going to Paris, you need to double that. I was like, I can't practice in my flat. The flat I'm looking at to go into now doesn't allow practicing.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, then it doesn't matter, find a new flat, pay more.
That was kind of the first time. I don't know if James Galway had a word with your dad as well, or it was just us listening, but that was the first time it kind of, the penny clicked with your dad.
Yeah.
As in, this is a huge deal here.
I feel like that as well.
You know,
I think that was where
I need to change my thinking.
Yeah, I feel like that was the moment he went, this isn't a hobby, this is serious.
Yeah.
We're talking about Paris, we're talking to Jimmy Galway.
You know, and Gareth's right when he says it's not easy and I need X, Y, and Z. You did need X, Y, and Z, and you needed A, B, C as well.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the first time that it really clicked after listening to him.
I suppose, yeah, because it's our reference point here. It's one thing we have is Jimmy, so we can say, well, you know, James Galway, we all know him. So at least we have that small reference point. So when he says you have to be practicing more, then you go, yeah.
But I think it was particularly tough on you because you were ready to go. Like, you were going to Paris within the next month or two.
Yeah. That's
so
right.
he was, in the masterclass, he was particularly tough.
He wasn't very nice about it, yeah. Was probably rightly so, you know, but he wasn't nice to me.
Yeah, the rest of them, some of them were school kids and things like that. So he could afford to be a wee bit more.
Yeah, gentle with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the minute I said the word Paris, his whole demeanour changed.
Yeah.
And the way he talked to me and stuff was really harsh and really strict. It was a wake-up call for me as well. But it was nice to get that wake-up call with everyone else. I always felt a wee bit like when I was in Paris, people still thought it was a wee bit of like it's still a hobby. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like I was sort of saying, do you understand like what school I'm going to? Do you understand who my teacher is? Do you understand like this level we're going to? Not that I wanted people to go, oh my God, well done. But a little bit, I wanted people to go, right, well, that sounds like a big deal.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, oh, he's just overplaying his wee flute in Paris. It was
yeah,
like, no.
I don't think I ever had that attitude.
No, I don't think
I
you
knew
did.
it was a massive deal, you know.
Yeah.
And I was very proud of you.
Yeah, it was a big deal going to Paris.
You know, and you would have talked to me about your teachers. I remember one particular teacher and you were learning scales.
Yeah.
And it was learning it in a different way and learning to play in a not Irish way.
Yeah, I remember that being a thing.
That's a big thing. I remember that being a thing.
It was. Yeah, Katrina had said to me a few
because I remember
times.
thinking, that is your thing. That's
yeah, that was my selling point nearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to
So
refine
why do
it
you
a little
knock
bit.
that out of you? But as you say, it's probably just refining it and then develop it.
It was a little bit of that. It was the employability factor as well. It was refining what was a very big sound.
Yeah.
A big Belfast, blowy or something kind of thing, which I'd never lost. And they're like, you're in Paris, now you need to be a little bit more subtle.
Yeah. And again, in your year, there was lots of Asians
Yeah.
who were
God, they're amazing.
Like, they were amazing.
They were amazing.
But they'd been playing the flute from they were about 3.
I know if I had a complex in Cardiff about this, when I got
Yeah.
to Paris, I saw the kids in my class coming in with these 24-carat gold flutes. And this
Yeah.
technique that you thought, you only get a technique like that when you've been beaten with a stick since you're 5 years old.
But you don't. Yours was genuine talent.
Yeah.
I'm very proud to say that, yeah. You know, you can teach a monkey to play the right music, the right notes in the right way.
True.
But to do it with music and put yourself into it, that's completely different.
True. Yeah. Well, did you ever have any doubts at that point onwards, like, if I should be doing music as a career? Between now and then.
I didn't. I think your dad had. I didn't really. I did worry. I do remember worrying as a mom, as in, how's he ever going to make a living doing this?
Yeah, which is a normal fear.
What is he going to do? But purely from that point of view, I worried.
Yeah.
I would never have gone to the point where I thought, by the time you give that up and come home and got a real job.
No.
I just worried about you.
Worried about them, yeah. Which, to be fair, is again normal because we do come from a working class background, so money is the thing we all worry about.
Well,
here.
it is, yeah.
And I think the goal you always want for your children is to be financially stable. It's a big deal here.
Yeah, it is.
It's why I think most parents, we were talking about this the other day, but most parents dream for the kids is to work in the civil service.
Yeah.
You get a job in the civil service, you get a job for life.
Oh, you'll be there for life.
And that's
yeah.
it. You're sorted. You're going to get a wage and a pension. And
I
you're
mean,
happy.
I even remember that. I remember my father telling me that when I was 17, going to civil service, you'll be there till you're getting a pension.
Yeah.
Thank God it wasn't, but looking back, I think,
look what you're doing now, yeah.
I don't
You're a
know
freelancer
if
now
I
as
want to
well.
be there for like 50 years, but anyway.
Yeah, it is a weird attitude. And also, there's these things that are very different in Northern Ireland, which, because Northern Ireland is always small. Even we're not from Belfast. I talk about Belfast a lot, but we're Lisburn, we're outside Belfast, and it's a small town, and we still have that marker of get a job, buy your first house, get married,
it's a
have a
big thing.
baby. Usually by the time you're 30, you've got all those clocked in.
Yeah. Plus, neither your father nor I went to university.
True, yeah.
Do you know, we both left school at 16 and went to work.
Yeah.
Because you needed to. You needed to be out earning money. Because our parents couldn't have afforded to keep us.
Yeah.
Our parents couldn't have afforded to back up a university lifestyle. Yeah. So it was never even on the cards.
It's amazing that, yeah. It's not that far. Yeah, it's a generation apart. I'm curious then, like, if another parent was going through what you were going through, where they'd have nothing to do with music, they're not financially rich, to say the least. They're not like mega money where they can just throw it all away. And they've got a kid who says, "I'm going to be a classical musician," and you have no knowledge of it. What would your advice be to them?
To be honest, I don't know. I was in a very unique position, whereas I knew I had the financial backup, like of your grandparents.
Yeah.
They were there to help out, to encourage your music career.
Yeah.
But I think even with them, it was, well, we'll do that for so long until he actually starts working and earning his own money.
Yeah.
I wanted to do the things, but yeah, it was a struggle.
Yeah.
If I'd have been forking out, for music lessons every week.
Yeah. £40 a week.
Trying to save up to buy you. I remember the first big flute you bought, and it was, then I think it was like £600.
It was, yeah.
And like that was a lot. I was like, how are we ever going to buy this?
I know. It's making me laugh now because £600, I'm going, that's a piece of shite.
Do you know?
But £600 was massive, yeah.
It was huge.
It's just in my mind, I'm going for a flute. It's not very much money. Obviously, it's a lot of money in general, but
yeah. So yeah, it's tough, but it's maybe no different than going for any other career where you're going through university.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to. I mean, that's their path. That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to discourage it to do something else.
And what ways do you think parents can support their kids if they don't know about the music? And if they don't have the finances, what other things can they do to support them?
The thing that's easier now is the internet.
Yeah.
I didn't have that then, where I could look up things and have access to things and learn about it. Mm-hmm. But I would say get involved with them. Get involved with your child, and at least try and know a little bit about their world and what they're doing. I mean, I wanted to know what you were doing so that we could at least have a conversation about it.
So, like, yeah, what I'm playing,
and I didn't want to be completely dim.
Okay. Because we weren't. I remember we had many conversations about it.
Because if you'd have come and had a conversation, I didn't want to be the parent who said, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Fuck away.
Because then you wouldn't have come and talked to me ever again.
True. Yeah.
So even when I didn't know, and inside I'm going, I have no fucking clue what he's talking about. What am I going to do? You know, I'm a stupid parent. I'm this, but, you know, all you can do is encourage you. Learn a bit about their world. Learn what they're doing.
Okay.
Even if it's just a little bit, just to be able to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, the support, the emotional support is on an equal par with the financial bit.
Yeah, as a musician, I can say, I'm sure anyone who's been a musician, especially in this kind of generation, the biggest thing I think any parent can do is be there for them. Even if you don't understand it, be there, because, as I said, it's a shitty world. Like, you feel auditions, you know, when you feel an audition or you do things like that, it's the end of the world. You take it so personally in music, because it is your heart and soul and you care so much about it.
I do remember going to Paris to watch you for your end of year performance.
Oh, the concours, yeah, I remember that in the second year.
And I mean, that was a huge moment for me.
Yeah.
You know, I was up in the balcony. I think Rodrigo was there.
Rodrigo was there as well, yeah. Rodrigo did come to that, yeah.
Because I remember thinking, I want to stand. And they were introducing all the players, and they all had these very foreign names and and then the next minute it was Gareth Houston. And I thought, it sounds so
ridiculous.
Gareth Houston.
Yeah. I know there's nothing rock and roll about that name at all, is there? I used to crack up at that as well when you see the list of the names from Brazil and China and Japan.
It's really
then
funny.
There's a boy from Lisbon, you go, fuck's sake.
I know, but I felt like standing up and saying, excuse me, that's my son.
Yeah.
That's my son playing there, you know. Because you were given a performance. It was your exam and the panel were marking you, but it was a performance.
It was public as well, yeah.
Yeah. You had to dress and you had to prepare for it as if you were giving a performance to the crowd.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I was like, my heart could just burst here.
I know. I remember he's coming over that year. I remember the results actually didn't go that well that year either. But
and then I remember being away. I was away on holiday with my friends, and you had just failed some audition. I can't remember which one it was, but I remember you phoning me, and you were crying, and then I was crying.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
You know, and then the girls that were sitting with me, they were crying.
I remember that
They
as
were
well,
crying because I was crying.
Yeah.
And I was busy saying to you, look, you'll not get this one, but you'll get the next one. That's what being a musician is.
Yeah.
Speak to any of those big musicians and they'll
They've all
tell
went
you
through it,
about how many auditions they failed. And they're all sitting in the background going, yeah. You know.
But there is something about that. That's one thing I think, as much as I have a chip on my shoulder about, you know, being from Lisburn and not having the support or not having the financial backing and the world behind me, I think there's a lot of great things that come from that I feel sorry for the musicians who do have all those things. They don't have that.
Yeah.
They don't feel an audition and ring their mummy, and her and her mummy's friends are all sitting around having a bottle of wine going, you're going to be grand, don't worry about it, son, fuck them all. They don't have that.
They don't.
I have that.
Which is huge.
And that's the emotional side of things,
you know?
that I think I'm very lucky that I have that from Lisburn, and I have my upbringing to say, I very much keep my feet in the ground here as well.
And like, if I had no clue what you were doing, those girls had even less clue what you were doing.
I know, they really
They
didn't.
just knew. I mean, they've known you from you were born. They just knew, oh, something's happened to Gareth. He's failed this, so it's you'll be great. You're gonna do great. You're doing well. You're very talented. It was all there.
I also love that attitude of, if I failed, they had no clue about it, but they knew that it was the wrong decision. They'd be like, oh, that bastard, I cannot believe they didn't pass you.
I know.
That was always the attitude. They knew nothing about the flute, but they went, no, but we know you should have got it. and that always felt nice. You thought, they've got my back when other people don't. That's one thing I think, as if anyone's listening who maybe is like a parent, or who's got a parent and you're not really sure how to work around this whole thing, the emotional support is so much more important than everything else.
It is.
It's so much more important. Because the money, you can work it out. Like, look, and we had no fucking money when we were younger as well. And we worked it out. And we got me an instrument. We got me a flute. We got things worked out somehow.
Yeah, we got there in the end.
You even saying my grandparents and all, they helped out. But it's not like my grandparents are mega bucks either.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all working class, but you put your money together.
But it was there.
It was because of the emotional support. You're like, if we've got each other, we'll work out the money. It'll be grand.
Yeah.
But supporting them when they do it, and also when you don't understand it, don't say things like, are you sure that's right? If you don't understand it, just say, yes, you're doing grand. The one thing I hated was coming back.
But I did believe that. I wasn't just telling you that for the sake of it. I did believe you're doing great here. You're where you're meant to be. So have a bit more belief in yourself.
Yeah. That's what I needed. I think that's what a lot of people need. The emotional support is so important. So it's, yeah. I hated when I came back if anyone had said things like, oh, are you sure you did it right? Are you sure? Or stupid things like, oh, did you check to make sure you played all the right notes? Maybe that's why you didn't get the audition. And you go, I'm going to fucking...
I don't think I ever asked that.
No, but people have asked that when I come back here. You know, they just don't know a clue. And I know they mean well, but that's the kind of thing you just, honestly, if you're not sure, and just shake your head. Just be a support system. Be someone that can talk to. Be someone you can express to. Be someone when you feel an audition in Paris you can ring and cry over. And they're there to listen to you. That's what real support is.
Even if you don't do anything, it's just to be there at the end of the phone to say, I've had a shitty day. I did try to practice. My practice was rubbish. You know.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing as well. It's so personal in music as well. That's the thing. You take it so to heart. When things don't go well, it's like your life and soul and your heart, and you're like, yeah, fuck this.
But then when I started, remember I took up the saxophone?
Yeah. Well, I got you lessons for Christmas one year.
Yeah, you and Ben bought me lessons for Christmas, and rented a saxophone for me.
Yeah.
To say, look, if you like it, keep it up, and if you didn't, absolutely loved it. But yeah, you would have said to me on a very basic scale, you know, play it slowly first, get all the notes right, and then.
Yeah.
But I mean, that encouragement was there. And I remember saying to you more than once, follow your own advice.
Yeah, true. Not get frustrated too easily, not get wound up about it. And not throw the baby out with the bathwater when something goes wrong. You know,
so yeah, that's what rehearsal is about. That's what it's for.
True. Yeah. I know I should follow my own advice on. I'm getting better at that, but I haven't quite got there yet. But I'm getting better.
No, there'll always be that little bit of self-doubt in there.
Yeah. But the podcast has helped as well. Doing this helps a lot, you know. It
gives you a little bit of confidence.
It does, yeah. I'm sure you find the same with your podcast, but when you do podcasts and you're like, well, actually, I know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm not as much of a fucking idiot as I thought I was. I mean, I am, but for different reasons. If you saw me last night, you'd say, Gareth's definitely a bit of an idiot.
Well, yeah, when I see you over Christmas in social situations, I'm like, oh my God.
What's he done now? Yeah.
Really?
Well, before we go, I normally add the guests fun questions, like rapid fire questions. They're a little bit different for you because I don't think some of them will work, but we'll try anyway.
I'm not a musician.
First one's going to be quite hard, but I'm curious to be saying, do you have a favourite flute piece? Is there anything on the flute you've heard that you went, that's my favourite?
Yeah, and I'm going to be very basic here. I'm sorry.
I know what you're going to say, yeah. Danny Boy.
Sorry. Yeah, London Derriere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hate it sung.
I hate it sung as well.
I hate hearing somebody sing it, and I hate it on the piano.
Yeah, me too. Actually, yeah.
But I love it when you play it.
It's beautiful on the flute. Yeah.
It is, and it's very Northern Ireland and very
it's pure Northern Ireland.
I mean, it's not up there with the great orchestras or anything. No,
it's definitely not.
But I love it, and it makes me cry every time.
Well, also I've went to see Jimmy Galway do concerts where he'll do that as his encore.
Exactly.
You know, so it says something. He's played the Berlin Philharmonic. He'll still do Danny Boy at the end. So it stands up on its own 2 feet.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember Colin Fleming even saying to me as well when I was trying to learn scales, because I fucking hated scales.
Yeah.
I never learned scales in my life. And Colin Fleming is like, scales are the most beautiful pieces of music in the world if you can understand them, except for Danny Boy. He was like, that's really beautiful, and then everything after that is scales. But he was always of the opinion Danny Boy was the most perfectly written melody of all time.
Yeah.
And I'd agree with him. It's gorgeous. Like, it is gorgeous.
Yeah, I don't want to hear the words and I don't want to hear it sung, but I could sit and...
Yeah.
And many of the time you were playing, there are other pieces, and I remember you practicing. But I remember you coming home when you were away from home, and you came home and you were practicing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would have turned down the TV because I used to think, this is a little concert just for me.
Yeah. I know neighbours used to do that as well. Maybe used to come home in the summer from music college and then be practicing for hours.
Remember Nana and Granda? Nana Pat and Granda Jerry?
Oh, yeah.
And you did a little, we recorded it.
That's right, yeah.
They lived in Spain at the time, and we recorded it and we sent it over to them. And they played it every night on their balcony. And they brought their neighbours in to listen to it.
Listen to me playing the flute.
That's my grandson.
I love the idea of them sitting out on the balcony as well with a bottle of rosé and a box of cigarettes, just sitting there going, that's him.
That's it. And they listen to it every night.
That's insane. But that's so supportive. That's the kind of thing you go, yeah, maybe I'm a bit of a rock star.
Yeah.
You know, I'm getting played in Spain every night. You know, here, there's a whole audience. Do you remember your first album that you ever bought? This is fun because it gives an idea of the kind of music we were listening to in this house when we were younger.
My first album, I'm trying to think actually. I remember my first single that I bought.
Yeah.
and it was the theme from Grease, the song from
Oh,
Grease.
really? Okay.
The movie.
Oh, so what year was that?
Summer Nights.
Summer Nights, yeah. What year was
That's
Grease
when
out?
but that's when I had the money or whatever to buy my own record. I
Yeah.
bought my very first single.
Summer Nights, Grease.
Yeah, Summer Nights, Grease. And I remember playing it to my great. She'd have been she was my great auntie, so your
God,
great
God,
great
what she
auntie
was to me
Madge.
then, yeah.
I remember taking it round to her and playing it and thinking, "This is so modern. This is Auntie Madge. This is in the charts. This is not going to number one."
Yeah.
And she hadn't a clue what you were talking about. But,
And now we're doing like Grease
Yeah.
now as well, yeah.
but my music was Bon Jovi.
That's right, you're a big Bon Jovi, yeah.
Absolutely, still do. Loved Bon Jovi.
You give us that, yeah.
The rest was just probably whatever was in the charts. I hate to admit it, now I'm probably slightly embarrassed to say, but I was a big Cliff Richard fan.
You were a big Cliff Richard fan, I know that one, yeah. There's two others that you give me such a taste for, which I still have. One, Bay City Rollers,
Yeah.
who I think are class.
That was huge.
Bay City Rollers are brilliant.
Yeah.
But
And I met them.
You did? You met
So
Les
that was
McGowan
my
as well,
clue.
didn't you?
Yeah.
No. But like before, when he was young, not when
Yeah.
he's now, not Alky, Les McGowan.
I did meet him when, I did meet him as an adult and he ruined my teenage dreams forever
Yeah.
and ever. Because I think I went with your Aunt Mary.
That's right, yeah.
And
And it was the Bay City Roller.
Yeah.
Only one of them turned up.
And I wanted him to be the same as what he was when we were all like 15 and I was raging that he was near 40.
It is only a couple of years ago he's was it not?
Yeah.
All the audience were there in their Zimmer frames.
Yeah, so it was Bay City Rollers. Absolutely
tartan
loved
Zimmer
them.
frames.
Still do love the Bay City Rollers.
Ah, yeah, they're brilliant. The other one, which I remember listening to as a kid, and genuinely I still listen to in the car, you listen to all the time, Shania Twain.
Yeah.
You give me the Shania Twain taste, which I'm forever thankful for.
I love Shania Twain.
Yeah, who
And
doesn't?
she was that wee bit of cross between country and pop. but,
Exactly, yeah.
I love country music. I'm not embarrassed to say it. I absolutely love country. So,
That's a good one. Okay, do you have a go-to karaoke song?
well,
You've done karaoke a few times.
stuff. You're going to make me laugh. I did karaoke for the first time this year.
Really?
When I was 60.
That's right, okay. I think you told me it's
I
what
had
you
to
do.
wait until I was 60. And, me and the girls go away every 2 years
Yeah.
for a holiday. So this year we were going to Tenerife.
That's right, yeah.
And Joanne had pushed me and she said, "Right, Gail, you said now that you're turned 60, you're going to go out of your comfort zone and you're going to get up and sing." She put my name down and I had to get up and sing.
What'd you sing?
I was going to get up to sing I Will Survive.
Wow, by Gloria Gaynor? Wow.
Yeah. But one of
that's
my
brave.
one of my friends, she was there with her friends, so we all met up.
Yeah.
She got up with me
Okay.
and we sang Crazy.
By Nars Barkley?
No, Crazy, no.
Oh.
Patsy Cline.
Patsy Cline, Crazy.
Patsy Cline, Crazy.
That
yeah.
one? Yeah.
Yeah, that one. And I remember being on the stage, but as you say, doing the likes of this and being a celebrant
Yeah.
took away that confidence bit. So I had no worries about getting up in front of people and doing that.
True, yeah.
Rubbish.
It's just the shite
completely
singing this year.
rubbish singer.
Yeah.
But I do remember singing my heart out. Obviously pished. And I remember looking at the crowd because like karaoke, do you know when you're on holiday and all these people get up to karaoke
Oh,
and
aye.
they're really good. And then I get up and they were all looking at and you could just see it in their faces. They were going, "That's fucking awful."
Yeah, not even laughing awful, just
Yeah,
like, oh God.
just looking. Just want to say, really?
There you are on stage,
Who
giving it
ever told
everything.
you you could sing? But
it
yeah, we
rice and
did that.
beans.
And then the rest of the girls got up and we did Dancing Queen.
Brilliant. Okay. Excellent taste. There you are.
So that's my karaoke, would probably be Crazy.
There you are. Brilliant. 2 questions left. If you could have a drink with any musician alive or dead, who would it be?
John Bon Jovi.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the big one for you?
Yeah.
John Bon Jovi? Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. I would have thought... You're not a big Rod Stewart fan, actually, are you? No?
I love Rod Stewart.
But you're not... He's not your...
No, he's not my idol. Not like Mary.
yeah, yeah.
No, John Bon Jovi would
Bon
be
Jovi.
mine.
Okay.
Or Michael Bublé.
Or Bublé, yeah. Yeah, okay.
I feel like I could sit and have a conversation with Michael Bublé.
I think you could have a conversation with anybody. You'd be
Yeah,
grand, but...
yeah.
That's definitely
But-
something I've inherited.
But yeah, John Bon Jovi, I would
That's a good
love
one.
to speak to him.
Okay, and the last question then. Do you have a favourite drink? Alcoholic or non-alcoholic? And yeah, what would you drink with John Bon Jovi?
Oh, I don't know. Actually, I don't think John Bon Jovi drinks.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I'm nearly sure I read somewhere
now
that
dry
he's teetotal.
Oh God, he's no cracker.
As he got older, I don't think he was the same in his younger days, but as he's got older, I mean, I drink wine usually, but when I'm out and about and doing anything, my go-to is Captain Morgan's.
Yeah, Captain Morgan's and Coke. No, Fanta.
Yeah, Fanta.
Captain Morgan's
so
and Fanta.
I would probably sit and have a wee rum.
Did you always drink that, or was that just because of Auntie Mary doing it on Christmas Day one year? I remember she did it, and she said it tasted like a Joker ice lolly, and that changed my life that year.
She never drank rum ever in her
No,
entire
when she
life.
bought it.
My drink growing up was always Bacardi.
Yeah, you were Bacardi Diet Coke.
And that was Joanne, and Joanne's mum
Yeah,
drank Bacardi.
yeah.
Because I wasn't a big drinker.
I know you
growing
weren't.
up.
Yeah.
Your father introduced me to drink. He maybe drove me to drink, but
drove you to drink
we'll
as
not
well.
go down that road because he might be listening.
I'm sure you will. Yeah,
I would tell him to his face anyway.
I know you would. Yeah.
So it was Bacardi, and then so it was always rum flavoured things,
Okay.
you know.
So you can have a Captain Morgan's and Fanta with
John Bon
John Bon
Jovi.
Jovi then. Well, he'll stick to the Fanta on its own.
Yeah.
Then. You can get it. Right. Well, thank you very much. We're well over an hour there. This is brilliant.
Wow, I didn't even notice the time going in.
I've got to cut all that down.
Have to
but
admit,
happy
I
days.
was slightly nervous at the
'cause
beginning,
you're-
but
yeah.
I think we were all right.
No, it sounds great. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
I loved it.
This is really fun. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Is there anything you
Yeah.
want to say to everybody before you go? Or are you good?
No, I will say I am still extremely proud of you.
Well, thank
I'm
you.
going to be a soppy mom, but I don't care.
Well, thank you. That's very
I'm allowed
sweet.
to be. I am. I'm extremely proud of you all the time, but I am more than proud of what you've accomplished.
Thank you. That's very sweet. Well, let me be a soppy son. It's not even soppy, but I do want to say, go on your Instagram page because you're trying to
Yeah.
grow this up now. So
Yeah.
for your human ceremony and for your podcast. The podcast is a separate page, doesn't it, on Instagram?
Yeah, the podcast has its own page, Cracking Commitment.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't do it as a humanist celebrant. I do it as me.
That's your own thing, yeah. That's separate. Now, crack is spelled for anyone who's not Irish, C-R-A-I-C.
Oh yeah, don't be doing the other crack.
Yeah, it's not the American
we
crack.
don't do that.
Yeah, crack and the different ones. So crack and commitment, the Northern Ireland Weddings Unscripted, I think it's the
Yeah.
full title.
Yeah.
There's an Instagram page for it, and then your own Instagram page for your humanist wedding celebrate
It's
stuff.
Gail's Humanist Ceremonies.
Gail's humanist ceremonies. There you are, easy peasy. Then, thank you very much, everybody, for
Thank
listening.
you. Love you loads.
I love you too. Thank you very much. All right, bye everyone then.
Bye.